The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, Chapter 22. In the 10th heaven, the Archangel Michael led Enoch before the Lord's face. And remember, God is a noun and verb. Establishing, increasing existence. But Lord doesn't really render Yahweh, doesn't it? Does it, 11 verses. On the 10th heaven, or of oath, I saw the appearance of the Lord's face, like iron made to glow in fire, and brought out, emitting sparks, and it burns. Thus I saw the Lord's face. But the Lord's face is ineffable, marvelous, and very awful, and very, very terrible. And who am I to tell of the Lord's unspeakable being, of his very wonderful face? And I cannot tell the quantity of his many instructions and various voices. The Lord's throne, very great, and not made with hands, nor the quantity of those standing round him, troops of cherubim and seraphim, nor their incessant singing, nor his immutable beauty. And who shall tell of the ineffable greatness of his glory? And I fell prone and bowed down to the Lord. And the Lord with his lips said to me, "Have courage, Enoch. Do not fear. Arise and stand before my face into eternity." And Enoch is Chinook, right? And the archistrategist Michael lifted me up and led me before the Lord's face. And the Lord said to his servants, tempting them, "Let Enoch stand before my face into eternity." And the glorious ones bowed down to the Lord and said, "Let Enoch go according to thy word." And the Lord said to Michael, "Go and take Enoch from out of his earthly garments, and anoint him with my sweet ointment, and put him into the garments of my glory." And Michael did thus, as the Lord told him. He anointed me and dressed me, and the appearance of that ointment is more than the great light, and his ointment is like sweet dew, and its smell is mild, shining like the sun's ray. And I looked at myself, and was like one of his glorious ones. One of the things that happens in the visionary realms, psychic or spiritual, is there's stuff like unto that of the earth, but it's like more so, or you're only reminded of it by the thing of the earth, But this could, the description there could narrow down some sort of resin or herb or something like that. And the Lord summoned one of his archangels by name, Prabuil. And remember that the V's are usually W's, but bring out the books from my storehouses, and a reed of quick writing, and give it to Enoch, and deliver to him the choice and comforting books out of thy hand. 23 of Enoch's writing, how he wrote his wonderful journeys and the heavenly apparitions, and himself wrote 366 books, which also relates to the Gnostic myth of the 365 heavens, you could say, and the God over that. And he was telling me all the works of heaven, earth and sea, and all the elements, their passages and goings, and thunderings of the thunders, the sun and the moon, the goings and changes of the stars, the seasons, years, days, and hours, the risings of the wind, the number of the angels, and the formation of their songs, and all human things, the tongue of every human song and life, the commandments, instructions, and sweet-voiced singings, and all things that it is fitting to learn. And Pravuil told me, all the things I have told thee, we have written. Sit and write all the souls of mankind, however many of them are born, and the place is prepared for them to eternity. For all souls are prepared to eternity before the formation of the world. And all the double 30 days and 30 nights. And I wrote out all things exactly and wrote 366 books. "24 of the great secrets of God, which God revealed and told Enoch and spoke with him face to face." Now let me qualify my statement. This is 5 verses about the ions. So there's the great ion, and then there's the 4 archions, you could say, or 7 or whatever, and then under that the other 365 ions, And the Lord summoned me and said to me, Enoch, sit down on my left with Gabriel. And I bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord spake to me, Enoch, beloved, all thou seest, all things that are standing finished, I tell to thee, even before the beginning, all that I created from non-being, and visible things from invisible. Hear, Enoch, and take in these my words, for not to my angels have I told my secret, and I have not told them their rise, nor my endless realm, nor have they understood my creating, which I tell thee today. For before all things were visible, I alone used to go about in the invisible things, like the sun from east to west and from west to east. But even the sun has peace in itself. Well, I found no peace because I was creating all things, and I conceived the thought of placing foundations and of creating visible creation. 25. God relates to Enoch how out of very low darkness comes down the visible and invisible. 6 verses. Now that I sit here, there's a lot more of the mushrooms that I could have included. I commanded in the very lowest parts that visible things should come down from the invisible. A Do'il came down, very great, and I beheld him, and lo, he had a belly of great light. And I said to him, Become undone, a Do'il, and let the visible come out of thee. And he came undone, and a great light came out, and I was in the midst of the great light. And as there is born light from light, there came forth a great age, and showed all creation, which I had thought to create. And I saw that it was good, and I placed for myself a throne, and took my seat on it, and said to the light, Go thou up higher, and fix thyself high above the throne, and be a foundation to the highest things. And above the light there is nothing else. And then I bent up and looked up from my throne. Chapter 26, God summons from the very lowest a second time that Arkas heavy, and very red, should come forth. 4 verses. And I summoned the very lowest a second time, and said, Let Arcas come forth hard. And he came forth hard from the invisible, and Arcas came forth hard, heavy, and very red. And I said, Be opened, Arcas, and let there be born from thee. And he came undone, and age came forth, very great, and very dark, and age is in own, right? Age came forth very great and very dark, bearing the creation of all lower things, and I saw that it was good, and said to him, Go thou down below, and make thyself firm, and be for a foundation for the lower things. And it happened, and he went down and fixed himself, and became the foundation for the lower things, and below the darkness there is nothing else. Chapter 27, of how God founded the water, and surrounded it with a light, and established on it 7 islands. 2 verses. And I commanded that there should be taken from light and darkness. And I said, Be thick. And it became thus. And I spread it out with the light, and it became water. And I spread it out over the darkness, below the light. And then I made firm the waters, that is to say, the bottomless. And I made foundation of light around the water, and created 7 circles from inside, and imaged it, the water, like crystal, wet and dry. That is to say, like glass, and the circumcision of the waters, and all other elements. And I showed each one of them its road, and the 7 stars, each one of them in its heaven, that they go thus. And I saw that it was good. And I separated between the light and between darkness, that is to say, in the midst of the water, hither and thither. And I said to that light that it should be the day, and to the darkness that it should be the night. And there was the evening, and there was the morning, the first day. And 28, the week in which God showed Enoch all his wisdom and power throughout all the 7 days, how he created all the heavenly and earthly forces, and all moving things, even down to man. People like to add the word all and only in certain scriptures, and but it's not there, right? 40 hadith Qudsi, and wait, doesn't this one book have 140 something? So that sort of stuff even happens with the most recent. But 4 verses. And then I made firm the heavenly circle, and made that the lower water, which is under the heaven, collect itself together into one whole, and that the chaos became dry. And it became so. Out of the waves I created rock hard and big, and from the rock I piled up the dry, and the dry I called earth, and the midst of the earth I called abyss, that is to say, bottomless. I collected the sea in one place, and bound it together with a yoke. And I said to the sea, Behold, I give thee thy eternal limits, and thou shalt not break loose from thy component parts. Thus I made fast the firmament. This day I called me the first created. 29. Then it became evening, and then again morning, and it was the second day. Monday is the first day. The fiery essence. 4 verses. And that's an interesting thing. If this was not available, and Enochian has Monday as the first day, thus moving the Sabbath to Sunday, but that actually doesn't really say much, but Monday is the Enochian Sabbath, in the Enochian magic realm. So it's moved a further day. So there's that, yeah. That's what I was... So it wasn't making the point that I thought. And as for all the heavenly troops, I imagined the image, an essence of fire, and my eye looked at the very hard, firm rock, and from the gleam of my eye the lightning received its wonderful nature, which is both fire and water and fire, and one does not put out the other, nor does the one dry up the other. Therefore the lightning is brighter than the sun, softer than water, and firmer than hard rock. And from the rock I cut off a great fire, and from the fire I created the order of the incorporeal 10 troops of angels, and their weapons are fiery, and their raiment a burning flame, and I commanded that each one should stand in his order. Here Satanael with his angels was thrown down from the height, and one from out that the order of angels, having turned away with the order that was under him, conceived an impossible thought, to place his throne higher than the clouds above the earth, that he might become equal in rank to my power. And I threw him out from the height with his angels, and he was flying in the air continuously above the bottomless. Chapter 30. And then I created all the heavens, and the third day was... Oh, Tuesday is in parentheses. Okay, so there's Christian commentary. So the first day can still remain Sunday. And what they included in the Bible doesn't say that it's the first day of the week is anything other than when the sun sets on Saturday. Okay. That's what confused me in a second. So 30 is 16 verses. On the third day I commanded the earth to make grow and fruitful trees and hills and seed to sow, and I planted paradise and enclosed it and placed as armed guardians flaming angels, and thus I created renewal. Then came evening and came morning, the fourth day. Wednesday is in the parentheses, but... Well, if Wednesday is the fourth day, then Sunday is the first day, so, okay. On the fourth day, I commanded that there should be great lights on the heavenly circles. On the first uppermost circle, I placed the stars, Chrono, and on the second, Aphrodite, on the third, Aris, on the fifth, Zeus, on the sixth, Hermes, on the seventh, Lesser, the moon, and adorned it with the lesser stars. Now, this isn't quite appropriate in terms theologically, because of the word Zeus is kind of like saying Heavenly Father. So, but the personification, certainly, Zeus would be, yeah. And on the lower I placed the sun for illumination of the day, and the moon and stars for the illumination of the night. The sun, that it should go according to each animal, the signs of the zodiac. 12, and I appointed the succession of the months and their names, and lives and thunderings, and their hour markings, how they should succeed. Then the evening came, and the morning came, the fifth day. So Thursday. On the fifth day, I commanded the sea that it should bring forth fishes, and feathered birds of many varieties, and of all animals creeping over the earth, going forth over the earth on 4 legs, and soaring in the air, male sex and female. Well, they should just male and female. Makes a lot more sense. So, and every soul breathing the spirit of life, And there came evening, and there came morning, the 6th day. Friday. On the 6th day I commanded my wisdom to create man from 7 consistencies. 1 his flesh from the earth, 2 his blood from the dew, 3 his eyes from the sun, 4 his bones from stone, 5 his intelligence from the swiftness of the angels, and from cloud, 6th his hair from the grass of the earth, and 7 his soul from my breath, and from the wind. And I gave him 7 natures, to the flesh hearing, the eyes for sight, to the soul smell, the veins for touch, the blood for taste, the bones for endurance, and the intelligence sweetness, enjoyment. And I conceived cunning, saying to say, I created man from invisible to and from visible nature. Of both are his death and life, an image, and he knows speech like some created thing, small in greatness and again great in smallness. And I placed him on earth, a second angel, honorable, great and glorious, and I appointed him as ruler to rule on earth, and to have my wisdom, and there was none like him, of earth, of all my existing creatures. And I appointed him a name. That peculiar name bit in Genesis, there's, more to the whole name bit. Renown and heaven and other stuff, but we'll see. From the 4 component parts, from east, from west, from south, from north, and I appointed for him 4 special stars, and I called his name Adam, and showed him the 2 ways, the light and the darkness. And I told him, this is good, and that bad, that I should learn whether he has love towards me, or hatred, or that it be clear which, in his race, love me. For I have seen his nature, but he has not seen his own nature. Therefore, through not seeing, he will sin worse. And I said, after sin, what is there but death? And I put sleep into him, and he fell asleep. And I took from him a rib, and I created him a wife, that death should come to him by his wife. And I took his last word, and called her name Mother, that is to say, Eva. And, Hawa would be how it would be rendered in Aramea. But, that's certainly not what I would mean if I told a woman, if I marry you, it'll be the death of me. Well then, you kind of don't want that sort of thing. Chapter 31. God gives over paradise to Adam, and gives him a command to see the heavens opened, and that he should see the angels singing the song of victory. Adam has life on earth, and I created a garden in Eden in the east, that he should observe the testament and keep the command. And I made the heavens open to him, that he should see the angels singing the song of victory and the gloomless light. And he was continuously in paradise, and the devil understood that I wanted to create another world, because Adam was Lord on earth, to rule and control it. The devil is the evil spirit of the lower places. As a fugitive, he made Satana from the heavens, as his name was Satanael. Is it Sathaniel? Is that how you correctly pronounce that? Thus he became different from the angels, but his nature did not change, his intelligence as far as his understanding of righteous and sinful things. But we have here, somewhat like you have in the Quran, that there's the idea that the ones that followed the prince, the ones like unto Satan, were of a different type of creation from the start. So, but they also became something. It wasn't just that they were created like evil or something, but and he understood his condemnation and the sin which he had sinned before. Therefore he conceived thought against Adam. In such form he entered and seduced Eva, but did not touch Adam. But I cursed ignorance. But what I had blessed previously, those I did not curse. I cursed not man, nor the earth, nor other creatures, but man's evil fruit and his works. Chapter 32, 4 verses. After Adam's sin, God sends him away into the earth, whence I took thee, but does not wish to ruin him for all years to come. Now, why they say God versus Lord in the translation, I'm not entirely sure. Is it this nonsense, oh, that was Yahwist and that was Elohimist, and it's like, well, let's look at the context of those terms first. But I'm surprised no one's pulled that garbage with the Quran. Allahumma, and then the verses that are like Allah, and maybe take some of the other names and, you know, but maybe they know that that wouldn't quite work. But anyways, I said to him, earth, thou art, and into the earth, whence I took thee, thou shalt go. And I will not ruin thee, but send thee whence I took thee. Then I can again take thee at my second coming. And I blessed all my creatures, visible and invisible, and Adam was 5.5 hours in paradise. And I blessed the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, on which he rested from all his works. Chapter 33, God shows Enoch the age of this world, its existence of 7,000 years, and the 8,000 is the end, neither years nor months, nor weeks nor days. 11 verses. And remember, some of these numbers and stuff, there are certain symbolic elements, or certain linguistic elements that you could say, well, if this was in Aramea, we're listing out a bunch of numbers, stuff other than the numbers that is being hid by the translation. If you know, and I appoint the 8th day also, that the 8th day should be the first created after my work, and that the first 7 revolve in the form of the 7,000, and that at the beginning of the 8,000 there should be a time of not counting, endless. With neither years nor months, nor weeks nor days, nor hours. And now, Enoch, all that I have told thee, all that thou hast understood, all that thou hast seen of heavenly things, all that thou hast seen on earth, and all that I have written in books, be my great wisdom. All these things I have devised and created from the uppermost foundation to the lower, and to the end, and there is no counselor nor inheritor to my creations. I am self-eternal, not made with hands, and without change. My thought is my counselor. My wisdom and my word are made, and my eyes observe all things, how they stand here and tremble with terror. And if I turn away my face, then all things will be destroyed. And apply thy mind, Enoch, and I know him who is speaking to thee, and take thou the books which thou thyself hast written. And I will give thee Samuel and Raguel, who has led thee up, and the books, and go down to the earth, and tell thy sons that I have told thee, and all that thou hast seen from the lower heaven up to my throne, and all the troops, for I created all forces, and there is none that resisteth me. Or that does not subject himself to me, for all subject themselves to my monarchy, and labor for my sole rule. Give them the books of the handwriting, and they will read them, and will know me for the Creator of all things, and will understand how there is no other God but me. And let them distribute the books of thy handwriting, children to children, generation to generation, nations to nations. And I will give thee Enoch, my intercessor, the archistrategia, Michael, for the handwritings of thy fathers, Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, and Jared, thy father. I remember there's no J sound in the Aramea, so, which causes some of the confusion. What some of these names would have originally been. Oh, okay, that's, well, it makes sense that that thing was a squirrel. Sorry. Chapter 34. God convicts the idolaters and sodomitic fornicators, and therefore brings down a deluge upon them. 2 verses. They have rejected my commandments, and my yoke. Worthless seed has come up, not fearing God, and they would not bow down to me, but have begun to bow down to vain gods, and denied my unity, and have laden the whole earth with untruths, offenses, abominable lecheries, namely one with the other, and all manner of other unclean wickedness, which are disgusting to relate. And therefore I will bring down a deluge upon the earth, and will destroy all men. The whole earth will crumble together into great darkness. Now, the people teaching sex ed really shouldn't, teach about health and whatnot. Don't get into all these sex positions and whatnot. Come and teach what the laws are. Yeah. Chapter 35. God leaves one righteous man of Enoch's tribe with his whole house, who did God's pleasure according to his will. 3 verses. Behold, from their seed shall arise another generation, much afterwards, but of them many will be very insatiate. He who raises that generation shall reveal to them the books of thy handwriting, of thy fathers, to them to whom he must point out the guardianship of the world, to the faithful men and workers of my pleasure, who do not acknowledge my name in vain, and they shall tell another generation, and those others, having read, shall be glorified thereafter more than the first.